what we've developed, as I mentioned earlier, is 8 specific competencies that teach people how to network. I'm going to give you a quick, 1 or 2 sentence definition of each of these, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into the first 4 competencies that you see there, the ones that are in blue. Those are what we call foundational. We start all of our programs at that point, and then we work towards the red ones, which is kind of advanced, and then finally move people to the yellow ones, which is what we refer to as mastery. But the 4 foundational ones is where you really need to begin. You've got to hone those skills before you can move into, for instance, developing trust-based relationships. So I've already mentioned adopting a positive networking identity. This is how you think and feel about networking. And that was basically the answer that on the poll that you shared. Adopting a positive networker identity is really based on a simple principle that networking is about teaching and giving. Every conversation that you have in a networking situation, you should be approaching it from, where are my opportunities to teach this other person something about who I am and what I'm all about? And how do I make sure that I engage them in a way that I learn something about them so that I potentially could give back to them in some way? So that's the foundational principle. That's what a positive networker identity looks like. And communicating your expertise is the teaching competency, and engaging others is the giving competency. And we're going to talk in detail about each of those competencies in a little bit. Taking a strategic approach is simply making sure that as you invest time and sometimes money, because sometimes you have to pay for events or go to a professional conference, making sure you get the best return on your investment when you're networking in terms of the relationships you're building. Developing trust-based relationships really digs into the actual conversations you're having with someone at any point in time, and what's your relationship to that person at that point in time. Is this somebody you're meeting for the very first time? Or is this the 3rd conversation? Is it the 10th conversation you're having with this person? What's the level of trust that's been established between you and the other person? And the whole focus of developing trust-based relationships is to get to the point where you've created, again, what we refer to as trust-based, mutually beneficial relationships. That means if Milray and I are mutually, we have a lot of trust and we're working to be mutually beneficial to each other, we're advocating for each other. I know everything, not everything, but I know almost everything about Milray. And when I see an article, when I know it, meet a new person, when I know Milray's trying to solve this problem, I will try to help him. And conversely, he'll know enough about me to do those same things. Networking gracefully is kind of the etiquette of networking. Some of the rituals that occur throughout networking, such as the name exchange, which everybody, engages in, what's your name? And then a minute or 2 later, you can't remember the name. Everybody have that experience at some point. There are ways that you can actually remember names, and networking gracefully also is a big part of that, is understanding and behaving in terms of this concept called likability. And if you just Google likability, you will find probably 15 or 20 books written on it. That goes into a lot of depth about who you are as a person, what's your attitude, how do you see others, which is all important when you're building relationships. Envisioning your ideal network is about the fact that we have 4 distinct networks in our lives, and making sure we're leveraging and maximizing those networks to the best of our ability. And finally, as you learn the skills and behaviors of these first 7 competencies, you reach a point where you're achieving more and you're giving more to everyone in your network. You're adding value to yourself. You're adding value to your professional career. And just as importantly, you're adding value to everyone in your network. You're adding value to your team. You're adding value to your organization. If you're an entrepreneur or consultant, you're adding value to your clients.